What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Johnny Mack here. Just wanted to give you a heads up that if you are looking for a community that is open to discussion as far as mentorship, conservation, the wild, becoming a better person, and all of that, there is a group for you on Facebook, and it is called Soul Seekers. Soul Seekers, we are all about making ourselves a better person. We're all about making sure hunting lasts for generations to come and encouraging people to get plugged in. Whether you are someone who has something to give or someone who needs to soak it up like a sponge, this is a community for you, and I strongly encourage you that if you're on Facebook to join Soul Seekers, and if you're not on Facebook, hop on there just for that group. It is only going to be as powerful as we all make it. And so just remember that life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you, and that you can't outgive good. You can't outgive good, people. I want you to understand that, and I want you to believe it, because when we believe that and we lead with courage and we lead with intention, lives are changed, lives are transformed, just like on this podcast, transformation through primal adventure. Be blessed. Enjoy this episode. Talk soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters, both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by the Crazy Elk Company. Based out of the state of Washington with products made in America, they are providing solutions with gear to problems you didn't even know you had. Their tag wallet is one of those solutions, and I had the pleasure of using it on all of my hunts this last year, and it is now a mainstay in my kill kit. The tag wallet is a water-resistant zippered pouch that comes with its own reusable zip ties to safely and securely store your notch tag for quick and easy access. For more information, go to crazyelkcompany.com and use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. Be blessed, everyone, and as always, stay soulful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today I got a wonderful episode with an amazing individual and someone who I have developed another incredible relationship with, which you hear me say this all the time on the podcast, but that's the whole point of podcasting, is building community and making new connections and growing and expanding the reach and the community, because it's all about that transformation through primal adventure. And one of those people who has just stuck out to me from the very first conversation we had is this beautiful soul, Autumn, who is actually the director of operations at CarbonTV. And I worked with her a lot when we were putting Soul Seekers on to Carbon. And I was like, man, Autumn is a cool person. I need to hear her story. And so I invited Autumn Stawecki to come on the show and to talk all about what it's like being her and being a woman in the hunting industry and this journey that she's gone on to get to where she is now. And so, Autumn, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of the Soulful Hunter. Let's go. Hey.
Of course, I feel honored. Thank you for inviting me on. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's so much fun having these conversations, and it's really interesting. I as a podcast host, you know, I get to interview some of the most incredible guests, and there's always incredible stories behind everything. And you know, the whole idea of like the golden rule, right? Treat people the way you want to be treated, do unto others the way you want them to do unto you, speak to people the way you want them to speak to you, and vice versa. Don't do things to other people the way uh, you wouldn't
Yep.
want it done to you. You are
Yep.
somebody who has always led with kindness. I see you always smiling, and I see like this is a soulful hunter. So we always talk about like the soul and the spirit and
hmm
what leads ahead of us. And here you are, that this resonates. Your smile, your energy just resonates. out in this universe, and here we are having this conversation. So, give the listeners a little history background on who you are, and then we're going to talk about your journey as a hunter, where it started to where you are now, and your love for the outdoors.
Yeah, so I am born and raised in Michigan. And lucky me, I get to hold my hand up and show you. I live up in the thumb.
Ooh, you're from the Mitten
um,
State, right?
I am. I get to hold my hands up.
Here in the state of
um,
Washington, we also hold our hand up, which not everyone probably knows this, but being a school teacher and teaching Washington State history this year, we do the fist with a thumb curled, and then that shows the Puget Sound and the
oh,
peninsula. And yeah, so
I
I live like right here.
see. We both can do it.
Oh, totally. I love it. So you're from Michigan, and Michigan is
Yep,
whitetail central. And
it
and and
is.
so when did you start your hunting journey? What was it from your very youth? Did your dad hunt? Did your mom hunt? Or you got siblings? What's the story?
So I am the boy my dad never had, he always tells me. So I am the oldest. I do have a younger sister. She was the more girly girl growing up, and I was the boy. So I did everything with my dad, and he has taught me everything, and I'm still learning things to this day from him. I started hunting with him when I was probably about 4, and I would sit between his legs on the tree, like in the tree stand, and I was his eyes and his ears. Like I would be like, "Dad, there's one coming," and I'd pull on his pant leg, and he's like, "Where? I don't see it, or I don't hear it." I'm like, "Right there!" And sure enough, here comes a buck walking by. So he has literally taught me everything, and I've been hunting with him. And then once I was old enough to hunt on my own, I sat in my own tree stands. And then um, I was 17 when I took my first buck. And I'll tell the funny story, even though I don't like to tell it, but I gotta be honest. I missed him 2 times with a bow before I actually shot him on the third time, all in the same night. So
You shot
see
three
this
different
buck coming
arrows at the
in.
same buck.
I did. I did. I can't believe I'm even telling everyone this. It's crazy.
I no, this is that don't be ashamed. There's no judgment. I actually find it fascinating that you got 3 shots on a whitetail, which are like the spookiest
I
animal on the planet.
I I
What?
know. I know. So this was when it first came in through the woods, it had just came off the grass field, and it had all this blonde grass in it. And as it's walking into me, I'm like, this is a monster. Like my first buck, I'm shaking already, got buck fever already. And my dad has the nerve to say, "Do you want me to shoot it instead?" I'm like, "No, this is let me shoot it." So I pull back and I shot, and I went right over top of it. I'm like, dang it. My dad's like, "Get another arrow, get another arrow." And at this point, the deer is kind of spooked. And this is also when we could bait. So he's like kind of eating, and he's spooked, but he doesn't know what to do. So I get another arrow, and I didn't knock it in all the way. So I pull back, and it just fell straight down, hit every limb in the tree. And the deer then now takes off and is like, "Yeah, something's going on here." So it probably like trotted off maybe like 20, 30 yards. And now at this point, it's getting downwind of me. And my dad's like, "Get another arrow, get another arrow." So I get another arrow, and I'm literally just shaking. And it is now downwind of me, and it stops. My dad grunts. It stops in between 2 trees. I swear we're probably this far apart. And I just closed my eyes and I shot.
Oh,
And
whoa.
next thing you know, there's a dead deer 25 yards away laying, and I shot him.
What was that feeling like? So you're 17 years old when you shot this, but how many dead? When was the first time like you put your hand on a dead animal?
Oh, I probably when I was 4. Like my dad used to call me like like the dog, because I could trail. I could just find blood, like the tiniest speck of blood. I could find it. My dad would be like, "All right, go find it." And I'd just go through all the woods, go through the fields. I could find any little speck of blood, and I'd find his deer every single time.
I didn't know
And
you were
then I
part
got the.
bloodhound. You're
I
you're
know I am. You
you're a
should hear me howl.
That's hilarious. So continue on. Yeah,
And
sorry
then
to
I would hold the legs, and he would gut. And so I mean, I've been around deer hunting and gutting and tracking, and probably since I was 4.
Man, that's so
But
cool.
as a 17-year-old and shooting my own first buck, I was so excited. Like,
Yeah.
I think I remember crying just a little bit, like happy tears, obviously, but I would just remember just shaking. I couldn't stop shaking.
Oh, man. I know exactly your feelings, and I just wanna throw some anecdotal stories in here, like, so I have being a Westie, a West Coast person, when you shoot an animal, you're rarely ever taking it back home whole, right? You're
Yeah.
processing it in the
Hmm.
field, and so I have
Yep.
3 boys, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and they haven't gotten an opportunity to experience that with me because on my
Oh,
hunting career, which is very short, I have not had very good opportunities to take them on the hunts that I'm doing because of the style and whatnot.
yeah.
With that being said, my wife got into butchering chickens this year for the very first time. We're diving into the homestead
What?
life. Yeah, savage. I got some
Like
photos
Little
that
House on the Prairie.
yes, it's amazing. So Butcher Day came about, and my wife, I was like, okay, so you want to raise. This is not a hunting story, but I'll connect the dots here shortly. I was like, okay, you want to raise chickens then, or you want to butcher chickens, you need to actually butcher the chickens. And she's like, okay, I'm in it. I was like, okay, and our boys are going to be there. So it was their very first time seeing death like up close and personal. And when the chickens are upside down in the cone and you're having to cut their heads off and they're staying in the cone that way they don't run around and throw blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And my 2 boys, and I have 3, the youngest, he's 2 years old, so he's like in la la land. But my
Yeah.
4-year-old and 6-year-old just stand there and are staring, and they're like, and my 6-year-old goes, "I think I feel kind of sick. Can I go lay down?" And I was like,
Oh,
I was like, "Yeah,
oh
totally."
my gosh.
Now, I understand how that can be traumatic,
Oh yeah.
100%. And yet we've
Hmm.
definitely prepared them beforehand. It was like, okay, you're gonna see
Yeah.
blood, you're gonna see a lot of
Yep.
things. You do not have to watch if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Um, but what an amazing moment that was for them. And so I can only imagine what it was like for you. Now, did your dad, when you shot your deer for the very first time, was your dad was like, okay, you're doing all of it, or did he support you in breaking it down, or how did that go?
So to this day, my dad still will gut my deer for me. He has taught me how to do it, but being daddy's little girl, I'll just say, he's always just done it for me. And I think that's just something that him and I enjoy. Like, I track it, we both pull it out of the woods, and he just guts it. I hold the leg. It's just like how we do it. And then we both pull it back into the pole barn and we hang it and have a couple beers. And now that I'm dating Kyle, Kyle's does all of this with us, and I kind of feel like I'm getting a little replaced because he's the boy now. But
Ah.
um, my dad and I always just have that bond, and he just has always gutted it for me. And like I said, I know how to do it, but he's the one that gets his hands dirty.
Yeah, totally. Okay,
Yeah.
so 17 years old. Now, I don't know what the culture is like out in Michigan, but you're raised up here in the thumb of the mitten state, and
Yep.
you're 17, so you're a junior or a senior in high school at
I
that
was
time.
a junior.
Okay,
I
so
was a junior.
were you surrounded by a bunch of girly girls of like, oh, you
I
hunt, or like, did you have community of girls that hunted as well? How did that play out, and what was that like for
Nope,
you in
I
high
was a
school?
boy too.
Yeah.
I was a boy in high school. I played sports all year round. I hung out with all the boys. I hunted. I My best friends were guys. So,
Did you chew?
um
Did you ever put a
did I
dip in?
chew?
Yeah, putting you on the
No, but I
spot.
did drink Bush Light, but I did not chew. But I did drive a pickup truck and I hunted and all that. So,
You were the total package for the guys, like just being like, "Oh my gosh, Autumn," when like, geez Louise, I love it. So here you are, you're finding yourself in hunting. What did hunting do
yeah.
for you, and at what point were you like, "This is something I want to continue on throughout my entire life or adulthood and in this journey?"
So I feel like it actually happened when I was much younger. I don't know at what age it was exactly, but watching my dad hunt and be successful every year, and my favorite part of hunting, to be honest with you, isn't killing the animal. I love waking up with the woods in the morning, and I love going to bed with the woods at night. Like, I just love being outside. And when I got to start hunting with my dad, I just loved being outside. And I just, I could have went shopping, I could have hung out with my girlfriends, I could have went to the football game instead, but I just wanted to be in the woods with my dad, and I just wanted to be hunting. And I also, of course, wanted to just get the biggest buck of so I could say I beat my dad.
Absolutely.
So I know we'll talk about this, but I did shoot a state record buck, and it is
What?
bigger than my dad's, who's also in the state record book. So I don't let him forget that.
That is quite an accomplishment and a statement.
Yeah.
Okay, let's like what age were you at this and have you always been an archery hunter or how does it work in Michigan? Is
So go ahead.
no, I was going to say in the state of Washington, you have to choose what weapon and then that's your weapon for the season. So,
Oh,
if you're going to rifle hunt, you
really?
choose the rifle and that's it. Archery hunt is only archery hunting. That's it, muzzle loader. And so, what is it like out in the state of Michigan?
So our archery season starts October 1st, and you can hunt with a crossbow or a compound bow. And then our gun season starts in November 15th. And there is a line that goes right across the state of Michigan that allows you to either use a rifle or a shotgun. So I always use a shotgun. I shoot a Mossberg 20 gauge. And then the last 2 weeks of December, you can muzzleload. And then where I live now in the county, they actually opened the month of January up for hunting, which is just archery.
Wow.
And I love both. I love archery. I think it takes more skill than standing behind a gun. I just do. I love bow hunting. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Um, but I love the type of hunt during gun, like the rut and watching these bucks chase these does around like typical men, I love that. Like, it's exciting. Like, October 1st and 2nd, you're mostly just sitting there and just hoping something comes around. But November 15th, like right around Halloween, even, it is just incredible. I love it.
So you're archery hunting around Halloween, or is that rifle?
Nope, it's still archery.
Man, that is wild. That is
Yeah,
cool. Okay, so tell us a story about the state record. And is it still to this day a state record?
it is. So it's actually so it's a state record buck, but it's by county. So I'm where I shot it was in St. Clair County. So I have a St. Clair County, Michigan State buck. And I have the book and everything, and I should look at this, but it comes out every 4 years. And I scored a 131 and 3/4 on it. And so I think I'm like 58th in the county. Um, out of like from like all the way back to like 1980s. Like, it's amazing how many people are in this book. But my dad is in it, my uncle is in it, and now I am in it.
Yeah.
And I know, but his did score more than mine, but my deer was bigger. It was a wider rack. It was 21.5 inches from inside. And
Was it a
I
typical?
think it was even, yes, yep.
Oh, beautiful.
And I'm pretty sure it was taller than my dad's too, but I can't remember exactly.
What were the points? What'd you get on it? Was it what, 12 point? Something bigger than that?
No, it was just an 8 point.
Uh-huh.
I'll just tell you the story. So,
Get into it.
um,
Let's go.
so opening day of 2015, opening day of gun season since November 15th. Well, the night before, my mom and a bunch of girls were going to a, a female comedian, like 45 minutes away from our house. So I'm like, I'm gonna go. And my dad's like, don't get drunk. You gotta be up early in the morning. Like, don't forget. I'm like, I know, like, I'll be fine. Well, I stayed up way too late and I slept in and I didn't go opening day of gun season. And my dad was furious and I was bumming. So as soon as I got up, I got all my stuff ready and I went out there and didn't see anything. He's texted me, just passed up a 7, just passed up an 8. Got one coming at you, just like nonstop. And I'm literally like, I don't even see a squirrel. Like, I'm texting him, like, stop texting me. Like, I have nothing around me. I don't know if I smell or what's going on, but I don't see anything. So we, it's like starting to get dark. And he texts me and says, "Hey, a six just passed me." And I'm like, just like, I put my phone away at this point. And all of a sudden, I just hear a huge crash from behind me. And I slowly turn, and I can see this doe just came running out of the thicket right behind my tree stand. And she is just frozen. And but she keeps looking behind her. And as a child, my dad always taught me, like, watch the doe. The doe will show you where the buck is at. So I'm just sitting still because a buck will not move until that doe moves. So that doe started to come towards me, and she got about 20 yards from me, and she kept looking behind me. And I'm like, there's got to be something back there. And all of a sudden, I just heard this grunt. And I mean, it was so deep and so long. I was just like, oh my God. And now being older, I don't get buck fever before. I get buck fever after I shoot. And so I'm like, okay, I'm so ready for this. I'm so ready. So
You're just
all
real
of a
quick.
sudden,
You're like the
yeah.
girl who's like, nobody cares about the bighorn sheep. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where she's like shaking.
Yes.
Yeah, that's you.
Yes, yes. That little girl, she's like, "Did I shoot it? Did I get
I'm sorry. Okay, so then all of a sudden, go ahead, keep going.
it?" So all of a sudden, the buck comes out of the thicket, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't even believe it. It's the biggest buck I've ever seen in my entire life." And so I go to grab my gun, and I'm slowly moving, and I'm trying to make sure I watch the doe because I don't want to spook her, obviously, because then she'll run, he'll follow. So I'm like slowly going down to grab my gun, and he is now behind a tree. His head is behind a tree. So I'm like, okay, she's not looking at me. She's watching him. Grab your gun. I get it. I get it up to my shoulder, and I just have the little bead and then the pin. You got to put it in between your
Yep.
pin.
Yep.
I'm my sight. I'm like, okay. I go to put it up, and my sight is gone. My little pin is gone.
Uh-oh.
So I'm like, what? How am I going to shoot this? Like, okay, at the end of the gun there's the little V. You can just, where to put this, like, just aim as well as you can on him. So I line up where the little V is in my sight, and I line it right up where I should be shooting him. And I shot, and he kicked front and back leg out. He looked like an upside down rainbow. Like, he just went straight out and came back and ran right towards me. And I'm like, oh my God. And I just started unloading. And so I hurried up and re-racked my gun, and I shot again, and he went down instantly. And so my dad texted me and said, "Was that you?" And I said, "Yeah, I shot him. I got him." And I go to call him, and I drop my phone. And so now I'm like getting down the tree stand really fast. I go to grab my phone, I call him back, and I'm like, I got him. And I'm crying. And I can hear my dad running through our 25 acres. And he's like, Autumn, hold on, I'm coming. And he's all excited. And he gets over there. And this deer landed on this big down tree. And I leaned up against the tree, and I'm holding up the deer and holding up his rack. And I just started bawling. And I couldn't believe that I had shot that big of a deer. My dad started crying. Like, it was just amazing. And he's hugging me, and he's just like, I can't believe you got it. And he's like, was that you that shot both times? I'm like, yeah. And the first time I shot him, perfect shot. Second time I shot him, actually, like, because he was almost underneath me, I shot him right at the base of his neck. Thank God I have a great taxidermy who was able to hide that when I got him mounted, but
Yeah.
worked out perfect. But it was amazing. I mean, and then afterwards, of course, I'm like holding the deer, trying to take pictures, and I'm shaking so bad the pictures are blurry. My dad's like, "You gotta relax. It's dead already."
That is beautiful.
So
Okay, so
yeah.
at that point in your career, you're like, this is incredible. Now what? Like the journey of a hunter is, start off, it's brown, it's down, and then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well maybe I want to shoot a more mature animal, and so you hold out for
Mhm.
that, and then maybe you shoot your biggest animal early on, which I kind of had that
Mhm.
experience, but I'm not gonna hang my hat on that. Behind me, I'm going to, still improve. So as a hunter, and what age were you when you shot that buck?
I was 25.
Yeah, so like, are you like, okay, this is now a new benchmark and this is what I want to shoot from
Mhm.
here on out, or is it
Yep.
first one that you see in legal and you're dropping it?
Nope. So actually, with where my parents live, they do really great deer management. Their neighbors do very great deer management, and my dad has always just taught me. And I know everyone's like, make sure it's like a 130, a 140. Our rule when I was growing up was dad would always just say it has to be 8 or bigger. And when I shot my first buck at 17, it was an 8, but it was a basket. It was not like anything. It wasn't a 130 or 140, but it was my first deer. But now that I have shot this and it's a 131, I will pass up on deer. And it's hard for me because I want to shoot a deer, I want to shoot a buck every year, and but I feel that it's very important to pass on them so that next year they're much larger and it's much more rewarding.
I totally understand that, and yet I am 100% like I haven't bought red meat from a store in years. Since I shot that elk that's behind me, that was like the
Yeah.
turning point in, oh, we're not buying meat from the store anymore.
Yeah.
So how many
Mhm.
deer can you take or how many animals are you taking a year in order to live this lifestyle of, okay, I'm not going to shoot it unless it's 8 point versus
Yeah.
we need meat in the freezer, it's a meat crisis, and what is that like?
So when my dad usually takes 2 a year, and I haven't taken one since 2018. But my dad has been lucky enough to, he's for so he gets to go hunting in the morning, he gets to go hunting every night, like where I have to work. So he's out in the woods all the time. So he'll take 2 deer. I'm now hunting. My boyfriend's now hunting. So we're each allowed to take 2. Um, And I would say the best way to explain it is my mom doesn't eat it, my sister doesn't eat it. So when my dad gets a buck, he splits it with us. He gives us half and he keeps half, and then he'll shoot another one in a few weeks or in another month, and again he'll give us half. And it's just myself and my boyfriend eating, so I can make like a pound of venison. I can make 2 dinners out of that actually. So
That
we still have probably maybe 10, maybe 15 pounds of burgers still left from last year's deer from my dad.
Wow.
Um, and we also turkey hunt, we also fish. So we always have food in our freezer,
Dude, that is awesome. I love hearing that.
especially
So,
with COVID. Like what we did. That's what we, relied on. We had fish and we did Little House on the Prairie. We made our own garden and
I'm all
we
about the
killed our own
homes.
turkeys.
Yes,
Yeah.
homestead life, man. I am, dude. Just I want to be a farmer now. I want to hunt. I want to farm. We have a garden here. It produces, but it doesn't produce the amount in which if we want to sustain off of it.
Yeah.
I grew corn for the first time, and I
That's
had a
awesome.
lot of fun. Although we also I went on a road trip this summer, and my dog died, which was super
No,
sad.
you told me.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
thank you. He was a warrior and a cool dog. But we got a new puppy, and we had a hole in our heart and our family, and so we got this puppy, and I don't know any of you dog fans out there know what I'm talking about. Little puppies, they get the zoomies where they just like zoom,
Oh
zoom, zoom
yeah.
all over. He
Yep.
knocked down so many stalks of corn. I'm like, get out of the garden, just like ripping
Oh
through. He thought it was like a dog trial where he was weaving in and out of the corn stalks. I'm like, come on, man.
no. I give you a 10. You did great.
Right, right. Yeah. So, but I know what you're talking about because, anyone who's listening to this episode and has seen Soul Seekers, I'm going to just say, I went on absolute terror of a hunting journey last year where I was able to shoot 2 bears, a buck, and an elk, which the only thing that you could add on top of that for an over the counter tag in the state of Washington would be a cougar. And I never actually went cougar hunting. So I feel like I hit the grand slam when it comes to animals. Well,
That's incredible.
yeah, thank you. It truly is. Um, with that being said, though, is filming a show and my hunting partner, like more often than not, Tony and I just share a gun. So one has a camera, one has the gun, and we take
Yeah.
turns and we trade on and off and on, and then we'll always split an animal. Well, I also, being such I don't really like talking about myself in this manner, but I like to be an ambassador and an advocate for hunting. And so part of that
Yeah.
is giving meat away and being like, oh,
Hmm.
try this, have this, here it is. And you shoot four animals, and when you're dividing those up between two people or maybe a third person, and then you're giving some away, it doesn't go as far as you want for a family of five. And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh man, I feel the pressure already for 2021. It's time to
Yeah.
actually drop an animal and put it in the freezer. So you made the record books. You are just a savage in the field. You love to fish, you love to hunt, you're having a great time. And what led you to this journey of a career in the outdoor industry? So you are the director of operations at CarbonTV, which is how we met. But what led you to that? What was this path?
So actually a podcast did. I was on Deer Hunter podcast. I know Kevin through my cousin Brianna, and he asked us to be on the podcast and talk about female hunters and how at this time there was a lack of female hunters in the industry, and what are our thoughts on as being a female in the industry. And so we did this podcast and stayed close. And a few years later, I was a wedding planner and loved my job, but just got sick of working every single weekend.
Yes.
And so I just wanted like a change. And my boyfriend said, well, what do you like the best? And I said, weddings, dogs, and hunting. Well, I'd already done the hunting, and I couldn't adopt every dog in the world, so that wasn't going to work. So I just started thinking about what I could do that involved hunting. So we were on a road trip up north, and we were listening to the Deer Hunter podcast, and Julie McQueen was on it. And I started listening to it, and she started talking about CarbonTV. And I just assumed that it was based out of where she was from, which was Montana. So I was thinking to myself that would never happen, but she seems awesome. I love her outlook, like her positivity. And she just seems like she's having so much fun. So I decided I was going to reach out to her. So I reached out to her via social media, Instagram, and I just told her like my background story and how I loved hunting and there's not a lot of females in the industry. And I looked at her as a role model. I followed her on Instagram already, and listening to her podcast made me feel like I just needed to reach out to her. And so I did. And within minutes, she had messaged me back and said, you sound amazing. I just love your story. I want to meet you. And lucky for you, I'm actually hiring right now. And I was
Solid.
like, yeah, I know. I couldn't even believe it. It was literally like I was waiting for someone to pinch me and like I was going to wake up. So a week later, I went into our office, and it was based in Michigan. And I went in for an interview, and we just hit it off immediately. I think we became best friends on that day. And she just said, I want to hire you. And it's literally been a dream come true since then. I don't even call it, we both don't call it our job. We wake up every single day and we get to do something we absolutely love. And you mentioned before my positivity and my smile. It's because I get to work with people like you every single day, and I get to hear your guys' stories, and I get to like see these pictures of a dad and a daughter, and I hear all these bloopers like missing a deer, and it just makes me so happy every single day. And I get to meet people like you, and I just got back from a fishing trip with one of our producers. Like, it's just incredible to me, the love that everyone has in this industry for each other, and it just makes me happy.
I love it.
And I'm
So
so happy where I'm at.
yeah, so how long have you been in your role? Have you always been director of operations? Is that what you got hired for?
No, actually, so I just started kind of like Julie's right hand man. They I can't remember what she first. We called myself a. My title was a Tom, and I can't remember what it stood for because we were joking about a Tom turkey. Um, title something I can't remember. I don't even remember. But she was just like, I really need help with like getting all the producers. Like, I have tons of emails from producers, and they need this and that, and I just can't keep up with everything. And I was like, all right. So she kind of just like handed over a couple emails here and there, and handed over a couple like, can you handle this? Some tasks. And next thing you know, like within a few months, she promoted me to director of operations. She said, you just took this and you ran with it. And I'm passing my baby on to you. Like, I want you to do all the forward facing. I want you to talk to the producers every day and make sure that they're happy. Because if they're happy, Carbon TV is succeeding. And I get nothing but positive feedback, so that's good.
I love it. That is amazing. Okay, so and how many years ago was this?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And is this your
Hmm.
first? This is your first outdoor hunting industry job.
It
So
is. Yep.
is I'm putting you on the spot here. So if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Is this a career job for you, or is this something that you think you're going to progress into other roles?
I am going to stay here until Carbon TV disappears,
Yeah.
which I hope is never. This is my career. And I'm so lucky to be in the position I am. You know, Jules and I just got back from a road trip together, and we were just talking about how there's no glass ceilings in Carbon TV. And we just have so much opportunity, and we meet such incredible people. And it's never end. Like, we get to do whatever we want, and it's just awesome. I just love my job. I don't even call it my job. I wake up and I get to just do fun stuff all day long.
Yeah, it's so sweet. I always talk about how the universe conspires for us, and I feel like this is a perfect example of the universe just it's working in your favor.
Yeah.
People they love to play the victim role all the time, like
Yeah.
woe is me
Mhm.
and no,
Mhm.
no. If
Yeah.
you put good out into the world, this is where my statement of you
Mhm.
can't outgive good. You
Yeah.
put good out into the world, it just naturally comes back to you, and we don't do good or be good or act good or say good for the return. It is just a
Yeah.
natural
Mhm.
consequence of what we do and how we show up in this world, and it shows, and it's proving just through how you are on this episode, and just how I
Mhm.
all my interactions with you through Carbon. So I love it. So what's the future hold for you? So like, yeah, I go on your Instagram and you got a link to a video that is Michigan Out of Doors TV from 2015, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to check this out. What was that? And then what's the future hold for you?
So that was our local Michigan buck pull, and it runs the first and second day of gun season. So you can take your buck there, and my dad and my uncle show up, and they're like, let's go take it. You know, we'll just go put it up on the pole." And I show up in my lifted truck, and my tailgate's down, my buck's hanging out the back, and I just showed up right before they closed, so everyone was standing there, and there's guys like, "Holy crap, look at that! It's an elk in the back," and "Dude, that's a chick driving that truck," and get out, and I'm just like smiling from ear to ear. And Jenny from Michigan Out of Doors, which is a local TV show in Michigan, was there filming actually, and she's there every year, her and Jimmy, and they were filming, and she came up and just immediately had this huge bright light in my face, and I couldn't even see it was her. I didn't even know. And she just starts asking me these questions and put me right on the spot. And I was just, of course, nervous. First time ever having a camera in my face. And I'm shaking and I'm doing my little giggle laugh, like my nervous laugh. And she interviewed me and asked me all these questions. And next thing you know, 2, 3 weeks later, I'm on TV and I didn't even know it. And I'm like, people are texting me, my uncle's calling me. So we hurry up and turn it on the TV. And I'm like, no way. And so then they invited me to we do a Western and an Eastern side where they take it to a hunting expo and they actually show up Michigan Outdoors and they do a live show there and you get to bring your buck and tell your story. So they invited me over there and my dad and I went and I got to stand on stage in front of tons of people and tell my story again. And now I'm standing there next to Jenny and Jimmy and I'm holding my mouth and I'm just like, of course, shaking and doing my nervous giggle laugh again. And so yeah, I got to be on TV then. And little did I know, now I'm here sitting next to Julie McQueen announcing the awards once a year, and
I
I get to
know.
be on film once in a
So
while.
all you listeners out there, if you have not checked out Carbon TV, please do. It is a really cool platform that hosts not only hunting shows but fishing shows and outdoor shows and like the outdoor lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all free. And yet,
It is.
and when I say, oh, it's like a Netflix type platform, people are like, oh, okay, cool. I don't want to pay for it. And yet, No, it's all free. It's 100%. I totally recommend checking out the show Soul Seekers. I hear that's pretty good. But
It's an
regardless,
awesome
yeah.
show. You guys should definitely check it out.
Regardless, that is it is really fun to be a part of something. And I see this videos from 2015. It's like that's a memory. You get to
Hmm.
share that with your kids. You get to
Yeah.
share it with your family. You get to have this legacy of being a part of the outdoors, and you obviously your dad passed it down to you, and
Hmm.
whatever happens with you in your future, you get to
Yeah.
hand it over. And I mean, that is what it's all about. And that's a part of this transformation through primal adventure that I talk about.
Hmm.
So, you've had all these really amazing experiences. My
Hmm.
question to you is, what has hunting done for you as a human being?
I think most importantly, I have a lot more respect for the outdoors. And I want to be a role model for the younger generation. I want girls to, I want little girls to hunt with their dad. And if they don't have a dad, I want them to hunt with anyone they can. I want them to just get outdoors, whether it's hunting or fishing, or I just want more kids to get involved. And I just want I just want everyone to one appreciate the outdoors. That's the most important thing. But
I
just stay educated too.
Yeah, I totally agree. There COVID was I always talk about life happens for us, it doesn't happen to us. And it goes back to the whole
Yeah.
victim mentality.
Mhm.
COVID-19 or coronavirus or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, there was a giant push to get people naturally, they were like, well, everything else is shut down. We're going to go
Yeah.
outdoors. And I noticed
Mhm.
way more hunters last year than I
Mhm.
ever have. And going into this season, I'm still noticing way more people
Yep.
out in the field. And I'm like, okay, this is like an opportunity where life is happening for us, regardless of the negative stuff that is
Yeah.
you know, a thread throughout it. At the end of the day, people are getting out and they're participating, and there are opportunities for them to pass this on, this legacy. The legacy that
Mhm.
we have is something that we create. And I think
Mhm.
often people forget that. They're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I just go hunting. It's a boys club, it's guys
Yeah.
weekend, or you
Yeah.
know, the Road Hunters Association of America, and you know, and yet there's beauty and fun in that, and there's so
Mhm.
much more. There's so
Mhm.
much more. So, what are some of the bucket hunts, the bucket list hunts that you have yet to go on, or that you want to try or participate in, or maybe you have knocked off a couple bucket list items already?
I think I want to go to Washington and shoot a bear. I think someone said you were. I think yeah. Did you
Yeah,
say you were inviting me out there
absolutely. You
to?
can shoot
I've
two
always said that
bears.
I would love to get out west and shoot an elk. I think that would be
Yes.
incredible.
Yeah. It
Hmm.
it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
It
Plus,
is.
I want that mount that's right behind you on my wall.
Yeah, that
That's incredible.
I shot that before I ever shot a deer. That was
That's incredible.
that was I shot a black bear. Was my first animal 4 years ago, and then the following year I shot this elk on my very first archery hunt. And that's why everyone's like, "Oh, you're spoiled now. You ruined it for yourself." And I'm like, "No, I'm just getting started."
Just getting started.
Y-
Stay tuned.
yeah. Stay tuned and stay soulful.
Yes, I love it.
Oh man, that is so cool. Okay, so
Mhm.
what are these you said you want to come out west and hunt elk. What state would you
Mhm.
choose? Like and would it be archery, I'm assuming, because you love the archery hunt?
Yeah. We were actually just Julie and I were just talking about this. I would love to get out to Montana. My favorite spot, I think, from just seeing pictures. But I would say I would like to go to Washington, Montana, and either Dakotas.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
Dakota, I'm learning. I have yet to hunt out of state. This is like the next progression of
Same
my
here. Same here.
yes, okay. So what I know is in North Dakota, you can get a whitetail tag, archery tag over the counter for like $150. and
What?
a lot of people from eastern Montana cross the border into North Dakota because they can just get that tag, and then
Yeah.
the North Dakota people are like, "Oh, this is crap," like. um, so that is what I'm going to experience at some point as well. So maybe that's a place for us to meet up and do
It's
that.
like halfway too. That's perfect.
Yeah. When it comes to Washington, it is so weird hearing you say, well, we can shoot 2 deer a year or whatever. We have so many black bears that you can shoot 2 black bears a year over
Really?
the counter. And
Wow.
regardless of you out of state, you come to the state of Washington, you can shoot 2 black bears if you wanted. But the state of Washington, you can buy an elk tag over the counter, deer tag over the counter, bear tag over anything's over the counter. And then depending on whether you want to shoot a branched antlered bull or you want to hunt a cow or a spike,
Yeah.
determines what style and what region you choose to hunt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. It's like this whole new world. I just applied for my very first preference point in Wyoming this last year. I'm like, ooh, man, I'm feeling like I know what I'm doing now.
Dust my shoulders off here.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, you have a show, you have a podcast, you must really know what you're doing. Like, I am learning through this the
I
entire
am just
time.
rolling with the punches here.
Yeah, I'm wearing. If the listeners you can't see this, I'm wearing the dude shirt, the Big Lebowski, and because I'm like,
I just seen that.
I'm like, I'm just a dude. I'm here. No,
I
but
love it.
it's fun. Autumn, I really appreciate this conversation. I'm really excited to see what happens for you in the future, and I can't wait to meet up with you and hunt.
Yes.
Obviously, I was extremely disappointed to not win any Carbon
I
Awards this year because I was like, oh, I can hunt with Autumn and Jules. We can get this.
know.
And you know what I was thinking? Well, we can do that regardless. We're gonna
I was
make it
gonna say you
happen.
don't have to win any award. We can still always we can hunt, we could just hang out, whatever you guys want to do.
Right.
We're open to anything. We were actually just talking about that we would love to tell more of our producers that they can invite us to anything that they're doing because we would love to join along. We just love
Okay.
being out in the field with you guys.
Well, here is what I'm inviting you to right now.
Okay,
December 11th is
got
a
it.
Saturday here in the state of Washington. We are hosting a social event. And the last time we got to have a social event because of the shutdowns and all this stuff,
Yeah. Mhm.
we raised almost $5,000 for Seattle Children's Hospital and had
Ah,
about 100 people at this community event and different conservation organizations. We got them all together and had a great time. I would love to have
I
you guys
love
come out
that.
and talk about Carbon TV and
I
what
absolutely.
you're doing for the hunting community and promoting it and getting off of the network TV and all that.
Yes. I love that. And I will talk to Julie, and I think that we would love to be a part of that.
There you
That sounds
go.
incredible.
All you listeners, if you mark your calendars, I know it's the month of September, but Saturday, December 11th, we're hosting an event and it is going to be off the hook. You're not going to want to miss it. It might be a little bit of a freedom rally also, depending on what's happening, because it seems like each day and each week as we go by in this
I
crazy
know.
world, and more insane things are happening. So, at the end of the day, Autumn, you have been an amazing guest. I really appreciate it. Thank you. How can people find you or connect with you? I actually gave your email away to a person from the state of New York today. They were asking about
Oh,
Carbon TV, and I was like, "Well, you got to talk to Autumn. She's your
awesome.
go-to." Yeah.
That's what everyone says. I mean, if you know of somebody that wants to be on Carbon TV, definitely give them my email. That's for sure, because I would love to review their content and hopefully bring them onto Carbon
Well,
TV.
that's just a random question before we
Yeah,
close this out. How do
yeah,
people get shows or content on Carbon TV? What is
through
that
me.
process? Yeah, so because today I had this phone call with this guy from the East Coast, and he's like, "What is this process? How does somebody go from being like, oh, I'm gonna have a camera in the woods with me, and then I'm being like, well, I'm gonna edit it and put it together, and here's a show."
Yeah.
So, what type of qualities Carbon TV look for? What is the standard? How does it go about, and what do they have to provide in order to hop on and be part of the Carbon TV family?
So, a majority of the people that reach out to us are either already on a linear platform, such as like the Sportsman channel or the Pursuit channel, and they're looking to take the next step, which is digital, which is what Carbon TV is. And people will reach out to me through our Carbon TV platform. You can reach out and just do a basic inquiry, or referral, like you just said. People will email me and say, "Hey, I know so and so. They told me to, reach out to you. They're awesome." And then I always give a shout back to the other person, of course. But I always ask, I want to see the content that we're possibly bringing onto Carbon TV, and if we think it's a good fit, we don't like to compare ourselves to YouTube, but if we get the YouTube vibe, we just softly decline, and we encourage them to check out a couple shows on our platform. I always say check out Soul Seekers.
Yeah.
And we just say, like, look at the cinematography, look at how they're hosting, and just look how they're presenting themselves. The camera work, the angles, and we try to see like other shows that stick out from one another. We don't want the basic like sitting in a tree stand and the whole entire 30 minutes is they're whispering and like every show is the exact same thing. Like we want something different. And we've unfortunately, we've had to decline a handful of shows, but we've also brought on incredible shows, such as your guys' show. And we love having you guys being part of Carbon TV family. And we just love having you guys. So usually I just have a couple different questions that I'll email back to them and, ask to see a couple different episodes, kind of get a background of them, just kind of get an idea where they're coming from, what they're all about, make sure that we're both have the same goals. And then, of course, ask my favorite Carbon TV account, because if you don't have a Carbon TV account, you shouldn't even try to be on our platform.
Right. There was it was so I had Robbie Denning.
Mhm.
If you know who he is, awesome guy, co-owner of Rockslide, and I reached out to him. I was like, "Hey, do you want to join me for a podcast? We'll talk about mule deer hunting." He's like, "Well, have you read my book?" And I was like, "No, but I would love to." And he was like, "Okay." And then so I went to go find it and buy it. And this is not a knock on Robbie because he is a gentleman, an amazing person. He actually
Yeah.
sent me his book. I read it, and then we scheduled a podcast. And
I love that though.
yes, and so I've heard
Kind
other
of like how you sent me an Instagram request right before I got on the podcast.
yes, because we need Shh, don't tell. No, the social media things get a little confusing at times when you have multiple accounts. The point of that.
Sorry, I had to just throw that in there.
Oh, shots fired. Okay, easy. I see how it goes. Um, but no, there's a lot of times where people are like, okay, you want me to be a guest on your show, but you don't even follow me in social media. So
Yeah,
do you actually know what type of content I put out or
exactly.
what,
Mhm.
you know? So that's a big part of it and is often
Mhm.
forgot that in a day and age of digital and social media and digital connections, there's also a person on the other side of it, and it is
Yeah.
about that personal relationship rather than
Mhm.
just, you know, I get DMs where people ask me different things, but they don't
Yeah.
tell me who they are. Like,
Yeah.
where's the, hey, I'm so and so, and then
Mhm.
here, or say
Yep.
what you want and then follow it up with, thank you so
Mhm.
much, and then your
Yeah.
name. And
Mhm.
I'm like, this is an interesting world that we live in, and how
Yeah.
people are so into instant gratification that
Mhm.
they want very quickly without
Yep.
actually stopping, pausing, and being like, let's remember some social cues and
Yep.
manners and all
Mhm.
that. And that's why I am so drawn to what you guys are doing at Carbon TV, because you represent humanity in a very amazing light as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. How can people find you? How can they follow you, Autumn?
I only have Instagram. I do not have Facebook. So they can follow me at Autumn KSS. In case you forgot already. Had to do it again. Sorry.
I got
But
your
you can find
account
me on
pulled up right
Instagram.
here.
And if you guys want to reach out to me too, you can inquire through the Carbon TV platform as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Autumn is an amazing human, and this goes to show that there are so many more amazing humans out there, and we're all within the same vine. And so when you find that beauty of life in somebody, they're typically surrounded by a circle of community of people that are like-minded. And I met Jana Waller Jana Waller led me to Jules. Jules led me to you, and it just continues on, and I'm just blessed every moment. Everybody, thank you for tuning into this episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you got to get some perspective on what Carbon TV is all about, Autumn's journey as a hunter, and what it's like being a female in the industry. Everyone, be blessed, freedom on, and as always, stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.